Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to Peter Watches TV, where I cover all the shows, the reality shows, the Bravo shows, the non-Bravo shows, the Netflix top 10, the HBO Max top 10, the Apple top 10, all the true crime that you could possibly want. I cover it all over here. And today we're going to cover the second season of Worst Roommate Ever. Okay, so let me give you a little history lesson about this, first of all. This is the second season. It's currently trending #1 in the US on Netflix. I really was not wanting to watch this show because I watched the first season with my friend Tanya. I don't really remember watching it, to be honest with you. We kind of had it on in the background. What I do remember from it was all these corny cartoon animation that was kind of telling the story about people that had like the worst roommates ever. I don't remember being very scared. I actually thought it was kind of corny. And so I don't even remember watching it. I don't remember if we even finished watching season 1. So when season 2 came out, and I remember it was trending at that time, but I don't feel like it was trending #1. I think it like maybe made it to like 6 or 7, then it like fell off the list. I keep a pretty close look at the Netflix or top 10 on all the different streaming services, but I could be wrong about that. But anyway, so when this came out last week and it was trending like #3 and then #2 and now at #1, I was like, and it like happened like overnight. I was like, this is so crazy to me. Like, why are people so interested in this? So I looked and it was only 4 episodes, and I thought, well, 4 episodes in an hour, it's like they're each like 53, 56 minutes. I was like, well, I can do that. So I went in with like no expectations whatsoever. I remember part of the first one from season 1 about somebody's grandma. I'm going to go back and watch season 1 and I will do a review of that. But I went in and I'm right now also binging Sister Wives. So I'm thinking about, I don't know, let me know in the comment section below if you guys want me to do, like, I'm thinking about doing every 2 seasons of Sister Wives as I binge it and doing kind of a review over here. But anyway, I remembered watching like something about somebody's grandma in the first one and somebody moving in with somebody's grandma. But anyway, so I started watching this. And I have to tell you, as an avid true crime watcher, I was instantly intrigued and mesmerized. I was just blown away, okay? So the second season is 4 episodes, and each episode is completely different. I was telling a friend this last night. She's like, well, I need to go back in and watch the first season. You do not need to watch the first season to watch the second season. The second season has absolutely nothing to do with the first season. Each episode is completely different. And this season really reminded me of watching, like, Evil Lives Here, or Murder Under the Friday Night Lights, or Murder in the Heartland. One of those shows. It's a true crime show where, like, each episode is a completely different story. That's what it felt like to me, which is interesting because I usually don't love those unless they're very, very well done. Like, Evil Lives Here, I love. Murder Under the Friday Night Lights, I've watched all 3 seasons. I love that. But usually I like the longer, you know, true crime documentaries that are like 6 episodes, 4 episodes, or just like an hour and a half long where it, you know, it goes into in-depth telling about the story. Don't get surprised whatsoever. This is 100% true crime, okay? I mean, when I watched it last night, and then I watched the first episode 2 nights ago, and then I finished it last night, the last 3 episodes, I was blown away, because I love true crime, and I was like, this isn't true crime, this is about people having bad roommates. It is true crime. Do not get confused whatsoever. This is 100% true crime. So I went in and I started watching this. The first one is called, from season 2, My BFF Tried to Kill Me. Rachel and Janie were longtime best friends turned roommates, but as Janie's obsession with raising Rachel's young son grew, so did her killer instincts. So as you know, over here, okay, on Peter Watches TV, these are spoiler reviews and spoiler talking about it, so I'm going to ruin the show for you. If you haven't watched it, go watch it, then come back and watch this video. In the first one, it's about this woman, and she has an autistic son, and she also has this best friend that they've been friends for like 20, 25 years or something like that, and they end up moving in with each other. And the main character has a lot of issues, and a lot of like medical issues, and she has to have multiple back surgeries, and she's, you know, medicated a lot, and so she relies on her friend and her roommate, Janie. This is Rachel that has the surgeries. She relies on her friend Janie to basically take care of her and take care of her son. So much happens in this story. I mean, I just literally was watching it like, is this for real? Like, this does not remind me of the first season at all. I was like, is this like, did this really happen to somebody? I mean, there was so much that was so sketch in this whole story. This woman was like on the dark web, and she was ordering like, okay, so this is what ended up getting her caught. So the woman kept on being hospitalized for having like going into like basically diabetic shock. And they didn't really understand why she was doing it. And so she was literally eating like spoonfuls of sugar at night. She wasn't diabetic and she didn't understand why. But when you're watching it, you already know, because she says to her friend, because she says in there something about, I planned my own murder to my friend. She says to her friend, like, they were watching true crime shows, and she's like, if you really wanted to kill somebody and you were a nurse and you knew better, then you would just shoot them up with insulin, because then they wouldn't, and this is all done like in cartoon, right? And so she's like, they wouldn't know to look for the insulin levels as like a way to kill somebody. And they show the cartoon of her friend's like this. Very interesting. So you know, when her friend goes into like insulin shock or diabetic shock or whatever it's called, that her friend has shot her up. You just don't know how she got it. Well, then she gets MRSA, and then all this stuff happens to her, and she keeps on being hospitalized. Then her roommate files for guardianship over her son. She loses custody of her son. She has to like fight to get him back. She gets kicked out of her own house that she's living in. I mean, it's horrible, right? She loses custody of her son, and this woman basically says she's a drug addict and all this kind of stuff. So finally, the way they catch this woman is that apparently, if you're like, I don't know anything about the dark web, okay? But apparently, if you're like on the dark web and you order something that's like biochemical, they consider that like a form of like really scary stuff. Well, she's on there and she's ordering, I guess, this biochemical, it's like MRSA, but it's called Versa. And she's ordering it on there. She plays so dumb when they interview her, and she's gonna like put it on her, give it to her friend and kill her friend with this disease. I mean, like, it's so crazy. And so then they go in and they look at her order records, and she's been ordering like insulin online, and then they find insulin shots like in her house that she was giving to her friend. And so she's been basically keeping her friend sick for years. I mean, it's so sad, this whole story. So anyway, so that's what happens in the first one. The second one is called Housemate from Hell. Seeking tenants for her Palm Springs home, retiree Anita Cohen takes in charming lawyer Scott Pettigrew, but the arrangement takes a terrifying turn. So this is about a woman that actually records her own murder. And it's all told basically through the eyes of her son and her daughter-in-law. And so this woman is retired. She's like lost her job, and she's working at Walgreens, and she meets this guy. She's got another roommate at the time. I think his name is Daryl. And she's got this house in Palm Springs, real cute house, pool, adorable little like, you know, Cape Cod looking house, one story in Palm Springs. But, like, the bills in Palm Springs are apparently so expensive. They talk about this in there. The police officer talks about one of the things you don't think about out there in the desert heat is that, like, utilities are expensive, like, because of the heat. And so she has to get these roommates. Well, she doesn't do background checks on any of these people, okay? She just basically takes their money and gives them their keys. Her son is like, she trusted anybody that would come into her house. So she has this guy, Daryl, that lives there for several years, got his cats and whatever, and he's like a little bit strange, she says, but he's real nice to her and stuff like that. So then she meets this gay guy that works at the Walgreens with her, the Scott guy, and he moves in with her. Well, as soon as he moves in, he wants to get this Daryl out. So he starts saying that she's doing stuff like leaving feces in the bathtub and all this kind of gross stuff and stealing from her, but he's blaming it on this Daryl guy to get this Daryl out of there, basically to get Anita all to herself. And so he does that, and this Daryl guy ends up moving out because he doesn't feel safe and all this kind of stuff. And like his cats are killed. I mean, it's horrible, right? And so he moves out, and then this Scott, then they flash back to this roommate in New York that had this Scott guy as a roommate, and she's like, oh yeah, like he did all this kind of stuff to me, it's horrible. So anyway, you hear the recording of the police officer, she's like, I like cry every time I hear it, and they find this Anita in her pool, and she's dead, and her son and daughter-in-law go over there, and the police find her dead in the pool, and all this stuff, and it's this Scott guy. I mean, it's just like, it is crazy town. I mean, these are crazy town. These are true crime. They are not just worse. I mean, you were talking about worst roommate. I mean, these people there's murders in all of them. The third one is called Burning Down the House. Veteran James Bo Bowden moves in with his Army friend's widow, Tammy, to help care for her son, and soon experiences a series of deadly accidents. This one is so sad to me. It's mostly told through the eyes of the son of the guy. So there was this guy in the military, and his best friend is this Bo, is what they call him. And the guy dies, like, right after his son is born. I think his son is something like 4. He's real young when he dies. And so his wife, Tammy, his friend Bo gets out of the military, and so his wife Tammy invites him to move into her home because her husband's just died, and she has this son that's younger. I think his name is Christian. And so Bo basically becomes the older brother to Christian, takes him to school, takes care of him, while she's off partying like crazy, okay? Drinking, partying, doing drugs, all this kind of stuff, not taking care of her kid at all. And she's so manipulative and all this kind of stuff. So she basically is running like this fraud scam, and she's like opening credit cards, and she gets fired for this job for writing bad checks and opening credit cards and all this kind of stuff. I mean, she is so like, I mean, the levels that this woman goes to of manipulation are like, I mean, she was like, she knew what she was doing. She was smart cookie with this stuff, right? But she takes out these life insurance policies. Like, she took one out on her husband like 3 months before he died. So she ended up having his body cremated. So you don't know if he was, like, if she killed him or not. And like, the mother's always like, I believe that she killed him, but we'll never know because his body was cremated. So she's got like in her safety deposit, her lockbox, she's got this Bo, guys. She's got his like social security card, his birth certificate, all this kind of stuff. Well, she takes out a life insurance policy on this guy, right? Because when the detectives are looking in and they're looking at like her fraud cases and stuff like that, they start looking at the credit cards, and she's been paying life insurance policies on a life insurance policy for this guy that's still alive. Well, he gets attacked. The night she's supposed to take him to the airport, he's supposed to move back home with his parents because he's been in and out of the hospital he gets sick. Like, he drinks with her, and he's like, I think she's putting something in my drink. I think she's trying to kill me. There's like 3 or 4 occasions. She tried to kill him like 5 times in a year, right? Well, the last time she's got these 2 roommates that she's doing drugs with all the time, and her son's like scared of them and all this kind of stuff. And he gets attacked with this like baseball bat and gets beaten alive, but he lives, right? So he's in the hospital. And she gets really pissed. Her son overhears her getting really pissed because he's moving. This guy's moving to, they're in Colorado Springs, to Alaska. And so she's like pissed. Well, she's pissed because she took this life insurance policy out on him that he's completely unaware that she's a beneficiary. And if he doesn't die, then she doesn't get the $150,000. So he's got to die. So that last night, she like drops him off at his apartment, and then like they come over there and try to kill him. Well, he lives. And the police find out that she's been paying these premiums on this life insurance policy on him. I mean, it's such a mess. The saddest part is the son now is like married and is having a baby, and he takes the phone calls from her because he is still so scared of his mother as a grown adult, and she's incarcerated, and he's like, I don't know. She's like, I think she is able to, or she got out. She just recently got out. And he's like, I don't know what she's capable of. He goes, she's the most manipulative person I've ever met in my entire life. Like, I'm afraid for my son is what he says. And so you hear a phone call like to him from her. I mean, it is scary to watch that one. And the last one is called The Lethal Landlord. A viral TikTok video sends detectives to the home of Michael Dudley, a Seattle man who rented out a room to a young couple never to be seen again. This whole thing was so sad. This is the one I watched right before I went to bed last night. I just couldn't get out of my head. It made me so sad. So it was about this guy and this girl, and I think he was like 20, 21, and she was like in her late 20s, and they were a couple. And they moved into this guy, Michael Dudley's house. And he had this previous tenant. I can't remember what her name was, but she was real nice. And she had these 2 dogs. She ended up moving out, and like she had to go take care of her dad while these 2, Austin and Jessica, were staying there. And so she moved out, and she had to go back and stay with her dad. And so she asked Michael, because she thought she had a good relationship with him. The one thing that was like a clue to her, she said she was a therapist. So one thing was a clue that was when his dog died, he kept his dog in the freezer for like a year after that. So anyway, so he like, she's out of town, and he takes care of her dogs, and he tells her that her dogs are going missing, and he finds one of them, and then when she comes back to get the dogs, the dog, because the other dog's still missing, Pepper, the other dog is still missing, he says to her, he brings in this hen, and he's holding this hen. It's so bizarre. This is all done in cartoons, of course. I don't know why they did it in cartoons. And he's like, I killed your dog. And she's like, what? And she's so afraid for her life, she doesn't even challenge it or say anything. I'm like, oh my God, this is so scary. He's like, I killed your dog because he killed one of the hen's chickens or whatever. And she's like, okay, he's lost it. So she never says anything because she's so afraid. Well, then this Austin and Jessica move in with them because they've got all these issues, drug problems and things like that, and they really have no place else to go, and so they move in with him because he has them doing all kinds of like illegal odd jobs, right? He's got cameras set up all over the house. Well, during the lockdown, they go missing. His family can't get in touch with either one of them. This Michael guy won't return any calls. So then this TikTok goes viral. It's out in Seattle somewhere, of these kids, these teenagers, I think, finding these suitcases on this Alki beach in Seattle with like body parts inside of them, which is so sad that there's like this viral. I mean, the mom was like, those are human beings. This was not a viral TikTok. I felt so bad for the family of this whole situation. It made me so sad. I mean, you talk about true crime, and I always believe in like honoring the victims and things like that. It just made me so sad for this mother. She was like, those weren't just suitcases. Those were like human beings. Like, they had lives. I mean, it just made me so sad. But anyway, so they started this investigation. Well, they end up finding out, like, through her phone records and tracking, like, this Michael Dudley's phone records. The only time his phone's ever left his house was this one night on the 17th, the night before the kids found the suitcases, that he went to the beach and dumped these suitcases. So they arrest him. I think he got something like 46 years in prison. He's not up for parole until he's 105 or something like that. It was so sad. And it was over just like a disagreement. He shot and killed both of them. That one is like hands down the craziest of all of them. It's so sad. I mean, they're all so sad. But it just goes to prove that you don't know somebody. Like, you don't know your neighbors. You don't know how you might not even know your husband or wife. You might, oh my God, you better get scared. I think I'm going to get divorced now. I don't know that I know my husband. We've been together 16 years. Maybe I don't know him. Anyway, let me know if you watch it. Put it in the comment section below. Any show suggestions, please put it in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.